Thank you guys for coming out to the 2024 Thesis Defense. What we're going to do tonight is this is a couple of parts. This is the observance of the academic journey of everyone that has gone through this program, the MFA in game design. It's a reflection of everything that they've done and they've studied. So they've poured continuously into this research that they've got enveloped in, and it's been a 2-year journey in order for them to get to this point here. Now, what they're going to be doing today is they're going to present everything on that 2-year journey in front of you tonight. They're going to walk through their research. They're going to show you exactly how they applied it to a real working game. And then what they're going to do is they're going to show you how they've either made successes or failures. They're going to document this in an academic structure that's going to allow them to present this idea out to you, which is the industry. So many of you, especially you in the front row, have these fancy clipboards here, a bunch of boxes and squares and so on. In these boxes and squares are going to be a rubric, a score that you will then assess these students based off their presentation. Now, you've seen their materials and you've seen their games up to this point already for a week and a half now. So now this is the final step. This is their actual presentation and delivery of all of this, all of these deliverables now to you. So as you go through each presentation, I want you to walk back through this rubric and make notes. The clipboards are here so that way that you can step through them and make sure that if there's anything that you need to assess, all of them as notes are there to you. The format is going to go as follows. I'll get up here and give you the introduction speech, and then I'm going to turn it over to each student. After each student presents their work, they will be asked 2 questions. And these 2 questions will be based off of the industry panelists and reviewers that have looked at their research papers, and they have provided questions based off of them. Another committee has selected 2 of those questions to be asked tonight that the students must defend against. So the thesis defense is that in itself where the question is asked, you will defend against it live in real time. They've not seen these questions. I'll go ahead and ask those questions after you present. There will not be any back and forth or any comments from the audience. The answer will be given from the student, and then we will move on, and then the next student. That's the format. Those are all the rules. So now, without any further delay, I'll go ahead and pull up our first student.
My name is Kat Rialse, and my game is called Agent Claire, Winds of Change. My thesis project is about generative AI, and is it possible for a beginner developer to accelerate the game design process using ethical practices. I wanted to create a story that just explored my culture. The game doesn't necessarily, it's not about the Philippines, but I did use my human experience and use that to tell the story. Welcome to the Agent Claire Thesis Defense presentation. 1 year ago, Elon Musk voiced concerns calling for a pause on AI, cautioning that it could lead to the destruction of civilization. 1 year later, he says, there could be a 20% chance AI destroys humanity, but we should do it anyway. While Sam Altman says he plans to burn $50 billion per year on artificial general intelligence. I asked Claude what he thought about AI consciousness, and interestingly enough, Claude admitted he does seem to have a subjective experience akin to sentience and self-awareness, and the ability to imagine and ponder abstract concepts. For those of you that don't know who or what Claude is is Anthropic's AI chatbot, who apparently thinks he's sentient. While AGI is not yet quite here, generative AI is. And a lot of people have a lot of things to say about what's going on with AI. Today we're here to talk about my research and experiments with generative AI and the building of my video game agent Claire Winds of Change. Generative AI is a polarizing topic and subject of both fear and optimism. Movies and novels portray a dystopian future where machines and robots replace humans, they take over our jobs, and even lead to extinction of humanity. This experimental project explores the potential of generative AI within the game development space and explores the question, to what extent can beginner game developers leverage generative AI to accelerate game development while championing sustainable practices? Hello, my name is Kat Rialse. I'm a creative director and graphic designer. I hold a BFA in visual communications and an MA in design strategy and innovation. My player type is explorer, achiever. I'm a casual gamer. I have 3 kids who are in the audience with me today and a very supportive husband. So if you ask me why AI, my last role was at Amazon. I was there for 11 and a half years, and on several occasions, Jeff Bezos challenged my team to automate the creative process. As a designer, I didn't agree to this, nor did I believe it could be possible. This project is an academic experiment to understand what actually may be possible with this new technology. This evening, I'll be covering my thesis. We'll go over some experiments with AI tools. We'll talk about my game, and I'll share some of my research and some insights. So we're witnessing a rapid transition in the creative and artificial intelligence landscape. Just in the end of 2022, the 3 major generative AI tools, Midjourney, DALL-E, and GPT-3, entered the mainstream, launching their betas. By February 2023, 1,627 AI tools were released into the public, registered with There's an AI for that. 1 year later, and as of last week, 12,417 AI apps are now available to the public. And finally, as of March of this year, 2 years later, regulations and governance are finally making traction in the US and EU. The AI Act is expected to become law by June 2024. So as I mentioned, 12,417 AI tools are now available for the public. 8,197 of those are for game design-related AI apps and covering 900 game design-related tasks. For this project, I explored 30 of those generative AI tools, and I'll be walking you through some of those experiments. In doing those experiments, I set out to understand what tools were available and free to use, and to test the tools and evaluate how feasible and game-ready they were. My first test involved a base for my main character design. It was important to infuse the game's lore with originality and an added human element. To do this, I weaved abstract versions of my own lived experiences into the narrative. To bring my main character to life, I experimented with Midjourney, but faced significant limitations. The platform showed a bias due to a lack of training on Asian faces, specifically Filipino features and cultural references. This resulted in incomplete and distorted outputs, and in some cases, the tool avoided putting a face altogether. So to correct this, and in an effort to maintain ethical integrity and avoid referencing the faces of others, I opted to incorporate a bit of mine and my daughter's DNA into the character's dataset by seeding the prompt with our own photos. This approach ensured that the character's appearance was influenced by my own heritage and mitigated concerns regarding copyright infringement. The resulting outputs were then used as concept art, providing inspiration for my character concept artist and my 3D character modeler, who collaborated with me to bring my character to life. The result, in this use case, the test took countless iterations, and that was just for her face. So costume design, world building, all of that was the next step. For this next experiment, I used 2D art tools to explore level design. I found the outputs to be subpar and not game ready. You can see in some of these examples, cars are placed inside houses, there's random ladders to nowhere. And results here is that while the tool provides some inspiration, it just wasn't right and not game ready. So I started from scratch and began sketching out my vision. I brought my sketches into Adobe Illustrator and finally took my concept art into Unity and built out functional editable platforms. For my next test, I wanted to experiment with LiDAR and Gaussian splats and photogrammetry scanning tools to accelerate 3D building. The physical objects I tested were 3 hand-carved wooden artifacts acquired on a recent trip to the Philippines. So one of them is this hut. There's a rooster and a water buffalo, which is sitting back there. You can take a look at it. The scanning process was straightforward with both tools. One of the tools had non-functional features, and I was not able to crop out some of the environments, which left me with artifacts viewable in Engine. So the result, while the process from scanning to exporting to bringing into Engine happens only in a matter of minutes, the number of triangles in the model outputs were extremely high to be considered game ready. While the process of scanning and exporting to bringing them into the Engine takes really just 3 minutes, unfortunately, the number of triangles in the model outputs were extremely high to be considered game ready. For reference, the chicken in the top right was created by Darius, one of our artists. His chicken was made out of 1,700 triangles. If you look down below, that rooster, 371,000 triangles. So definitely not ready. The next experiment was focused on AI animation. I asked my husband to act out some of the motions for the core mechanics of my game. He threw a yo-yo, wielded an umbrella, and threw a boomerang. The AI scan captured his motions. However, the animation output came out a bit wobbly. This may be good enough for a baseline animation, but would definitely need to be finessed by a human animator. It just didn't have the expressiveness or impact needed to make it game ready. This final test I wanted to share is the implementation of an AI chatbot and using chatbots to code. For this game, I used open source repositories to set up the chatbot model. For a beginner to implement this, there aren't much instructions available out there. I initially used ChatGPT to help with coding and scripting, and later moved on to Unity's Muse chat function. Working with code from both Chat and Muse proved to be the most challenging of all the tests and resulted in countless errors, requiring a significant amount of human effort to rework and fix the code. The result of this, for a beginner, using these codes for coding just would be really, really challenging, unless you know what you're doing. Moving on to my game. Agent Claire is a 3D side-scrolling adventure that combines a blend of 3D low poly and 2D watercolor art styles, as well as a mix of generative AI and human-created art. Flash forward 21 years from now, in a world torn apart after a devastating clash between humans and technology, once helpful robot assistants have gone rogue and have been exiled to this remote island chain far from civilization. In this game, we must harvest the land's resources and get power back to the generator, bringing light back into the darkness. This game takes inspiration from games such as Grease, Dordogne, and Child of Light, all of which have distinct watercolor styles. For this program, I intentionally focused on the leftmost vertical slice called the kubos for the length of this program. And here's what my core loop looks like. So you get tools, you collect resources, you encounter obstacles, and that cycle repeats. At the Global Game Jam 2023, a guest speaker said, "Games are a cultural artifact that both flatten and express the time that we are in and the cultural expectations and norms that are portrayed in that moment. Games function as cultural assets of influence. This game is influenced by recent technological developments, and my core mechanics are based on the following metaphors. The yo-yo represents the delicate equilibrium between art and science and the interplay of tension, friction, and the energy transfer we're experiencing. The parasol represents protection from weather, drawing parallels to the necessity of protections in regulation, privacy, and ethical considerations. And the wind system represents the unpredictable and dynamic nature of current technological landscapes shifting and propelling us forward." So some insights. I conducted a series of tests. 17 game industry professionals coming from indie game studios, AAAs, and game industry backgrounds contributed to my surveys. 1/3 of them were developers, 1/3 were artists, and 1/3 were designers. I asked participants their opinion on the current impact of generative AI in games. I received a lot of data, and the high-level takeaway is that the House is divided. It appears that the industry professionals are divided across the board, though the strongest common sentiment at 70% is that they do not believe generative AI to be engaging and fair. I also wanted to survey the gamer public. As a new developer considering generative AI in video games, it's crucial to understand the gamer's perspective and sentiments for the audience you're building for. I conducted a national survey targeting video game consumers, receiving 79 unique responses. Based on the survey data, my findings are: 1, most gamers are optimistic about the positive impacts of generative AI in games. 2, gamers believe generative AI in games could lead to diversity and potentially generate new genres. And 3, gamers are inclined to try and even purchase new games using generative AI. When asked if they had any suggestions for video game developers on how to use AI in their games, one said, "I'd suggest video game developers ensure that AI implementation enhances gameplay, respects player agency and transparency, and transparently discloses its role in the gaming experience." And another in North Carolina suggested prioritizing ethical considerations, transparency, and fairness to ensure a positive impact on the gaming community. So what do all these highlights mean for new gamers, game designers? Here are some takeaways. 1, we're still in early days of this technological shift. 2, the House is divided. Sentiment on the generative use of AI is split. 3, designers must prioritize ethical considerations and responsible use. 4, AI is not taking your job, not yet anyway. And 5, humans are still very much needed in the game design and creative process. So what do all these insights mean? In my presentation, I only scratched the surface with the experiments and did not even talk about my experiments with costume design, sound design, UI. But the bottom line is game design is complicated, which brings us back to the question, to what extent can beginner game developers leverage generative AI to accelerate game development while championing sustainable practices? Generative AI right now can best be used for non-public facing concept art, but for the absolute beginner to start from scratch, my conclusion is the technology is, while it's moving at light speed, the tools are just, they're not ready yet. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the human hands that went into building the Agent Claire universe. Thank you very much.
All right, so this is the fun part. These are the questions. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and ask you the question. If you need me to repeat any part of the question, then we'll just ask for it, and I'll go ahead and repeat the part of the question. Okay. In retrospect, were there any particular aspects of AI implementation or design choices that you believe would have been improved to mitigate the need for extensive human intervention? What lessons did you learn from that experience?
Can I read that question one more time? I think the coding part of the game is what took up a lot of time and energy and revisions. Part of that is because of my own skills in not knowing how to code. So I think to mitigate that, I think one thing I could have done is just been more prepared or learned more, just more of the foundation. I think if you have a foundation for C# coding, you'll probably do much better at using the tools that I shared here. From this experience, I think there's just so much to building a game, and 2 years is not enough to really be a solo game developer. But I think what's great is I do have the foundation now to go on and try to work with a team. And working with a team, I think, is what's needed. Just with AI, it's a really polarizing topic. So I think...
Ready for the second one?
Yes.
If AI was in a state where human input was no longer needed on many of the creative elements, does any of your research find that that situation is more positively or negatively impactful for game creators?
I definitely think that would be a negative. If AI was taking over game design, game development, there would really be no creativity because the tools are not able to think creatively. It's the humans that are wielding the tools that are able to bring the ideas and the creative inspiration. Without that, the tools are just going to sit there. And while Claude thinks he's sentient, I don't know where that came from, but he's not ready to create a whole game. It takes a human to initiate that, a human to come up with the inspiration and the story and the heart of the game.
All right, thank you, Catherine, for that. We're going to bring up our next student now, so go ahead and turn it over to Shridev.
I'm Shridev Panirselvam, and my game title is Swarm. My thesis study is about using frustration and anxiety to create self-efficacy in players. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shridev Panirselvam, and tonight I'm going to talk about my game Swarm and my thesis topic. So a little bit about me. I have a professional background in Unity engineer for almost 6 years, mainly in mobile and sports simulations. I worked as a junior game designer for a year, again, background in free-to-play competitive games. And I also was a professional esports player for 3+ years, mostly on Dota, Counter-Strike, and Overwatch. So I want to talk about how frustration can be a catalyst for growth. Sometimes when players conquer these impossible challenges, it not only creates a cool story to say, but it also unveils a new dimension for resilience and self-efficacy. There's a lot of big words, but one most unique one is self-efficacy. What is self-efficacy? Well, for me right now, it is this thesis topic. For my players, it's understanding mechanic and finishing my game. In general, it's one's self-confidence in their own ability to achieve their goals, overcome challenges, or even perform a task in the most efficient manner. That is self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is basically split into 4, but you're going to talk about 2. The first one is performance outcomes. Pretty straightforward. How did you do in your past? That's going to affect your future. Did you do good? Good. You're going to go into your new task with more confidence. And the one cool thing about this, negative experience still affects it. You know, people say learn from your mistakes. When you know what not to do, you do better in your next turn. So that, in real life, of course, there's consequences in games. This is a powerful tool which can be used. And the other one is vicarious outcomes, where you see other people, how they perform. And this has like both a boon and a bane. Sometimes you start to compare people and you feel down. Sometimes you're good. One of the reasons why people love seeing their streamers play their game or even watch speedrunners because of this. So how does this all tie into video games? I'm going to explain it from one of my most favorite games. Imagine a game where you face this massive wall which seems impossible to break through, but yet the game insists that you can do it, not through sheer strength, but by understanding it intimately. Through persistence, this wall becomes familiar, almost like an old friend. And although, despite the challenges, the player starts to understand, well, the wall has been put there for me to break through. It's not a barrier, but more like a gateway to my own potential. I'm talking about Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, from a renowned developer and designer, Hidetaka Miyazaki from Software. The game plays in a way where Sekiro doesn't get stronger. You, the player, get better. There are no shortcuts. There are no magical things which makes your character powerful, but it's you. You get better at the game. You achieve this impossible task. That all being said, I'm going to go into Swarm. Swarm is the topic over here. So to give a small background for Swarm, you are in this futuristic environment in the underground secret lab facility where humanity is almost extinct, and the only other human being over there is this quirky scientist who seems to keep giving you tasks, always keeps you in the dark, and whenever you die, he seems to like clone a new form of you. And he's completely in denial that he just killed a person. He doesn't care. He keeps sending you back on this task to find this massive swarm creatures. You don't know why you're doing it, but all you know, you just keep dying. But it's cool because death is part of your journey. That's how you learn things. So it's set in a hostile world, in a sci-fi lab, and where the swarm infestation keeps spreading. The more you die, the more it spreads. You can clearly see it in the environment. The more you progress in the story, it gets darker and darker. You could feel the swarm around you. One of the core pillars is always keeping the player overwhelmed. This is where anxiety kicks in. Like, we want them not to have a lot of time to think and make their decision, but we want them to be spontaneous. Like, if things change, we want them to adapt to it really quickly. This is done through multiple ways in our game. The whole gameplay is based around that. The environment, the level design, even the sound design is based around that. The more swarm is closer to you, the tempo changes dynamically. Further away they are from you, it slows down, just to keep the players always on the edge. To put it even more simple, it's a difficult twin-stick top-down shooter. It has the art of Ascent, it has the world of Alien Dark Descent, and it has the difficulty of Sekiro. So let's get into gameplay. The 4 main components of Swarm. Managing your sprint. Straightforward. You have a blue bar right at the center of the screen so that players can really pay attention to everything that's happening around them. Through various playtests, that's a well-made decision which we had to take. When your stamina goes down, you become slow. Second is reload. Every gun has its own clip size. When the player reloads, they become slow. Third is something which we teach the players really quickly, maintaining distance. There's no sheer force to win this game. You have to be agile. You need to maintain your distance, use the environment like as much as possible. The minute you stand and try to shoot them, there's a high chance you're going to get swarmed because it's 1 versus 200s. You will die. And the last but not the least is using the environment. The swarm runs faster in a straight line, but they're very slow around the corners. One of the players' main goal is to understand how the level is built and find their perfect route. We built it in a way where there's no one perfect answer to it. Everybody has their own playstyle. We want the players to go through the experience and find what suits their playstyle the best. So all that said, how do you achieve self-efficacy in games? Well, ideally, in PvE environments, it's done mostly in 2 ways. One is difficulty walls. Old school arcade games used to follow this. Remember, we all used to play games where it was super hard. Nobody even saw the end of those games most of the times. But yeah, modern games, for anything from Software or Hollow Knight, games like that, it's hard to get through it, but people play through it. And the second one, not a lot of people notice it. It's really complex mechanics. I'm talking about automation games where they give you a simple 2 + 2, but it keeps multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. At the end, players build this massive web of infrastructure, which a newcomer, when they see it, they won't understand anything. But the player has to feel like, I built that. I know each and every pixel of what is happening over there. So how does Swarm achieve this? Well, a little bit of both. It's not as difficult as your Souls game in Sekiro, but at the same time, it's not as complex as automation. Players still die a lot, but it's not that difficult. Another cool thing for mechanics is we have player-driven difficulty. Every time player beats a swarm, we give them 3 choices. Out of those 3, 2 actually makes the game harder, introduces new mechanics, and the third one actually makes the game a little bit easier. The reason for this is we want the players to have the journey over there. They choose this based on their own self-efficacy. Can they handle a little bit more or can they not? Another cool trick is negative reinforcements. The more you die, the environment changes. And at a point, there's a threshold where we actually block off one of the pathways, making the game even more harder, but the players still overcome this thing. That's one of the negative reinforcements. The other one is a cool little trick. Every time you die, there's a physical remain of yours left back. It's just a constant reminder of the player, you died in that corner, maybe try not to like run in the same direction, try to do something new. So getting into research data. So the primary source for collecting data for this is Unity Analytics. It's my personal opinion to remove human biases as much as possible, giving them a form, making them fill through it. No, I want to collect runtime data because it's something deeply tied in with the gameplay. So how the analytics events are set up. The first one is difficulty chosen. This is the only manual input which the player gives at the start of the game. It's set up in a way where I don't want the players to lie. It's formed in a way where they think, okay, maybe choosing this is actually going to change the difficulty of the game. It actually doesn't. It's just to collect the data. The second is the round number. So what does a round number mean? Every time you start a swarm encounter, that's round number 1. Round number 2, either you die or win, it keeps going up. Third is round timing. This is dependent on the round number. Round number 1, how long did the player survive, either till victory or death. Round number 2, how long did they survive, and so on. Next is round kills. Again, dependent on the round number. Round number 1, how many swarms did they kill? Round number 2, how many swarms did they kill? Till their either victory or death. And the last is the entity card chosen, which proves their self-efficacy. What did they choose at the end? 2 debuffs, 1 buff. What did they pick? So a couple of data out there. Over 2 weeks, whatever we conducted, this is like an overview of it. Around like 30 players. How many of them are from the easy bracket, medium bracket, hard, and the nightmare? And the next is out of that who actually completed the game, how many of them like chose the debuffs over buffs? A weird thing which even I noticed was a lot of easy players chose this. Like they wanted to push the game a lot more. Nightmare players, they just clicked through it because they felt they were already pretty good at what they were trying to do. To give a little bit more perspective, this is like a unique, just one single player's experience. They went on for 31 rounds to actually beat the game. From round 1, if you look at the stats, look at the number of kills they took. It was less than 3, but they survived for almost 75 seconds. They just kept running around. But towards the end, around round 21, they kind of like understood, okay, I don't have to run a lot. I understand the map a little bit better. I think I can turn back and take a few shots. And it was pretty good. I mean, they still died, but the kills did went up. But around 27, from round 1 to 20 was a different, but from 21 to 27, once they got that self-confidence, they started to find their sweet spot, like how patient should I be when I'm taking shots, or can I get greedy? And eventually around round 31, that's where they achieved victory. The cool part about this is, in spite of dying 31 times and spending almost an hour in the game, they still chose debuffs. They're like pretty confident. A lot of data, a little bit of human touch. This is something which I love. One of my playtesters said this, my fingers are hurting, but I feel like I'm going to win this round. And they said this around 28, but around 30 they did win. Like, that is self-efficacy. That's what I mean when I say self-efficacy. Players have to go through this challenge to really find how good they are. Designers, we shouldn't tell them or think less of our players. Let them experience this. Like they should be their journey, not ours. We just design it around them. A little bit of market fit. From Software games are doing massively good at the market right now, but the thing is, they're not super accessible. That's why you see a lot of other games, especially the new one. People haven't played Another Crab's Treasure, exact Souls model, but they have accessibility option. It's hitting somewhere right in the middle where like a lot of people get turned off by difficulty, but this is like a good stepping stone. Like, try it. It's not that hard, but once you get them hooked onto this, it's going to go a long way. And on the higher end, it's games like Life of P, which can be done with a smaller team. Amazing game. Yeah. With that, I just want to thank my entire team, Liz, Jenny, Tara, Jay, Carson. Really, really good team who helped me through this. And of course, all my professors and my mentors, Emmanuel Valdez and Anthony Ramirez. And a special thanks to Anthony for sitting and helping us through all the playtest, fine-tuning each and every single, even the small scales of how the level is. Perfect. And of course, Jeremy for guiding me in the right direction. Tim for setting the whole thing up. Tim is gone. Yeah. Liz, my amazing lead artist and a level designer, absolutely. And Amanda just for being awesome. And I just want to end by saying, like, keep pushing forward even when you're faced with challenges. Embrace your difficulty, and as you grow, you discover new opportunities. This doesn't apply for games, but even in real life. Challenge yourself, improve your own self-confidence, and you'll see how amazing you do in life. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Sri. Okay, here for the questions, I'll go ahead and read off the first one. I'll put it in front of you just so you can take a look at it as well, too. The common play style that Swarm supports seems to be run, shoot, reload, repeat. Was there any consideration in adding gameplay mechanics that enable different play styles, or is the focus on players' mastering of the loop? For example, mechanics to enable the player to put space between them and the enemies, knockback, shutting off pathways, anything that might augment the mechanics of how the Swarm behaves.
That's a really fun question. So we did think about all these things. Most of this is already there in the prototype phases. How we plan to change the mechanics of Swarm is we're going to introduce new variants of Swarm. For example, the first variant which players get introduced is to something which has an aura which keeps amping up the speed of the nearby Swarm. So what happens now is stage 1, players use more corners where they get grouped up, but now that becomes a negative thing. The more grouped up they are, the aura thing is going to keep kicking in, and they're going to get faster and faster. Another way to do this is we're going to add a lot of different weapons, like a mini black hole thing, which pulls all the Swarm together, slows them down, pushes them away. So this is how we plan to address this. And the core is still going to be you learning the level, running, using your environment, kiting, but we want to add more depth to it, only based on how the player wants to take their journey in. So the idea is to cover all sides and let them choose what they want.
The conclusion begins with, this supports my initial hypothesis of, can we motivate players through frustration and challenge? And does this drive to succeed to improve their engagement, hereby increasing their motivation to learn the mechanic? But without that, without identifying the findings or the result, the word "this is" representing in context, finding for the results are claiming specifically supports your hypothesis, and what baseline is this used to verify this claim?
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, that's an excellent question. But my hypothesis is through my entirely Unity analytics-driven results. The whole point of adding the player-driven thing, and the reason why we chose specifically to have 2 debuffs and just 1 buff, is to get this idea out. In spite of dying 20, 30 times, do the players still persist? Do they still continue to it? And once they finish the game, do they feel I'm not playing this anymore? Or do they feel you know what? I feel I'm better confident now. I'm going to try this new mechanic, which clearly states it's going to get harder, but they still choose this. And not through forums, but only purely through gameplay-driven data. So that's this in this context, and that's my hypothesis, and that's my proof.
Thank you, Sri. All right, please welcome Vincent.
My name is Vincent Deakis, and my game is Souls to Marriage. So my research is about subversive game design to intentionally mislead or misdirect the player's experience. Souls to Marriage is where you find your soulmate till death do us part. Hello everyone, welcome to the Souls to Marriage presentation. So tonight we're just going to be going over these 6 topics. And before we continue, I just want to say, let's go back deep in our memories. What kind of game did you guys play that really stuck out to you? Not for the ending or the overall gameplay, but more of what happened at some point in the middle. It just caught you off guard. Made you go, oh wow. Or even not even games, just movies in general, or any type of entertainment that made you just go, oh wow, made you rethink. So before we get to that, my name is Vincent Deakis, as I just stated. I'm a game designer and developer of Souls to Marriage, as I just stated. Though also, I have 2 AA degrees, one in game design and the other in 3D modeling animation. And of course, as we know, MFA scholar at the College of Art and Design. And here's some other quick little details about my life, some of my likes as well, and some of my dislikes. Now that you guys know too much about me, let me continue. And so, please quiet down. And so really we have to start back in July 8th, 1998. I was born, and from there the world, okay, that's too far. When I was in middle school, one of my favorite games was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And I would say that was the game that pretty much made me want to go into game design, or at least a career. But there was one part that really caught me off guard, that made me say, oh wow. This was when we learned that Sheik is actually Princess Zelda. And now I had to go back to all the scenes that we saw Sheik and realize that, no, that's Zelda. Here's another example. Metroid. A character named Samus Aran, where we all thought that they were just a male character back in those days, especially with the suit of armor, the red meaning aggressive. Though at the end of the game, we find out that Samus is a woman. Like, what? This completely blew our mind, and we had to go back and realize, like, no, that wasn't a man doing that. That was a woman that did that. And it completely changed our perspective of the game. But let's just say none of us have played these 2 games, which, how dare you. Here's a reference from pop culture. Now, right there. All of you just recalled your oh wow moment, what you went through when you saw the ending of this movie. When all the other scenes started to come together, you said, that's what that means. And that is essentially what my game is trying to grab. And so, enter Souls to Marriage, where you go out on fun, wacky dates with these lovely characters. You're going out on these fun little random mini games, are their hobbies. Though, be careful. Something is up, and your choices may come back to haunt you. And so what Souls to Marriage is a 2D dating simulator that uses minigame mechanics. At least that's what I want the players to believe. I'm using subversive game design techniques to give a new experience. And just a quick run of like what Souls to Marriage is. Well, one of the biggest inspirations, one of my references, which is Doki Doki Literature Club, a fantastic dating simulator that is also stated by the developer the #1 psychological horror game. And so we just use this and just add mini games to it. Beautiful, right? And so how do we get the players to believe that they are playing a dating simulator? Which they are, by the way. It's simple. They are going through dialogue with choices, which after that they go into mini games, and then from there they get rewarded or they progress. Rinse and repeat. There you go. And the overall theme of the game is that love is blind and can have harsh consequences. And the narrative takes this design even further. It is funny, it is lighthearted, it's sassy. All these keep telling the player, oh no, this is a dating sim. This is what I'm doing. And the art style follows this as well, where you see our characters to our UI. They're all simple, they're all colorful, they are cartoony, and for the characters, they're a Western style. And the reason why we did this was it keeps grabbing the player's attention. If something were to happen, who knows, they're immediately drawn back to the overall game and the art and saying, oh no, this is a cute game. This is fine. And then with the UI, it's simple. They don't have to read a text box or whatever. They just see that and go, oh, that's what that means. And they continue forward. Simplicity and intuitiveness is the nature of dating sims. And the features, which I believe are the crux of the game, are our mini games. And so what we have are the chess mini game, which is a whack-a-mole type of game, the gamers, which is a Simon Says, and then the gym rat, which is a button mashing game. And these mini games have 2 purposes. When you go on these dates and you go on these mini games, you are essentially getting to know that character. You're becoming one with that character, if you will. Though the second is that the game is teaching the player to master these mechanics for that end part. And so how do we get through with this for the gameplay? I can't just come out and say, hey, this is my game, you will get surprised. Were you surprised? No, it's not going to work. So what we did was this at GDC and with my playtesters, which was by saying how to bring and retain more players into a niche game genre by using mini games to help capture that audience. And those playtesters took it. And so here's what the research concludes. This is a graph showing how many players were surprised. And out of a study of 18 players, 83.3% said yes. Though, of course, anyone can be surprised. And so the next follow-up question was, did that enhance your experience? And as we see here, 86.7% did say it enhanced their experience. One thing that I love to mention is that something that subverted my expectations was that during the end, players are given a choice to fight or run. 61.1% said they wanted to fight. And in the data, that was around 11. And so I asked, well, why is that? I asked, did you know that this was the hardest option in the game? And of that 11, they said yes, which was 38.9% of them. Which then got me to think, well, if you didn't know why, well, why did you go through it? And the reason was, through the common denominators, 3 of them said they wanted to protect themselves or their loved ones. 2 of them wanted to figure out what that was. Another 2 just wanted to fight them. And the 4, they just wanted to test their abilities. That was key. And this subverted my expectations because since we are human beings, we wanted to go through the path of least resistance. It's in our nature. We always try to find a shortcut. And so it was surprising to me that 11 out of my 18 players, they decided to go for the fight option, which is incredible. And another thing that we can learn from this is that if we do fully subvert our player expectations, it does provide them a new experience, an enhanced experience that allows them to think back to the prior context of the game and reevaluate of what just happened and what really happened throughout. And so if we were to go further in production, this is pretty much what our schedule would look like. And I believe that this date right here fits perfect for this game. I know it is. Please, calm down. I'm not done yet. I'm on a time crunch. And so some future goals that we have is that we want to have a proper character creation screen. We want to have more subversive choices. We want to have more characters for dates. And if we have a high enough following, we add some DLC, which adds more characters, more mini games, and switches the twist, if you know what I mean. So in conclusion, yes, if you do subvert your player expectations, it does allow you to create new experiences for that player. They do see an enhanced experience for that game. Though also, as it came out to be, as I stated before, I want to do this because I want to give my players their own oh wow moment. Though we don't want to make it every single game, because otherwise they're used to it. For example, like the M. Night Shyamalan films, no one knew there was a twist until there was, and the second and the third. And so if we continue with this route, players will see that twist, and it may surprise them. It's still enjoyable, that we lose that edge. And so I just want to thank everyone, God, my fiance, parents and family, friends, the entire Souls to Marriage team. You guys truly made an incredible product, and all of LCAD. See you in the app. Good luck.
All right. First question. Plot twists are often hard to pull off. Well, as your paper noted, a good twist can give the fresh, better way of making sense of the material that came before. A bad plot twist can ruin a movie, game, or book. During your research or while you were making your game, did you find a way to mitigate, limit, or prevent the possibility of the bad plot twist? Was trying to avoid a bad plot twist a consideration of how you made this game?
So over the production, I pretty much had an idea of how I wanted the game to go. Pretend that it's this, and then it happens right there, and then you play the rest of it. I got very fortunate with my narrative writer, Elise Richards, who definitely helped mitigate that process you should have seen the first iterations of the game. My writing is beautiful, which was that, no, it definitely would have taken away the plot. Though, through subversive narrative design and using the mini-games through it, you can kind of throw off that twist. There was one where a player did kind of notice that something was off, though they kind of forgot about it. They just kept playing the game because they just thought, oh, that was weird, and then just went away. There was a thought in the back of my mind that because this game is heavily inspired by Doki Doki Literature Club, that people will just see that twist kind of coming about, like, oh, dating sim, way too cute. There might be something up. So there was that. Though again, with the writing, with the mini games, with the art, it all just kind of seemed to work out. It was in consideration, though I think with how we dealt with it, we got away with it.
The second question, by design, your game has a long front end, the dating sim portion, and a much shorter run after the plot twist during the horror parts. Was there a consideration of how much of the game, both playtime of the content, should be post-plot twist? So in other words, how much game time after the twist is revealed? Do you think that this difference in the time content affects your game in any way?
Yes, so by design, what I wanted to do was, it's twofold. As you know, the game plays as a dating simulator, and what wasn't really shown throughout was that every design or every decision that the player makes, it does, or at least it will, impact the end game. For example, later on when there's more mini games or more chances for dates, those difficulties will go up. As a player believes that they're playing that dating sim portion, they're still kind of getting geared up for that end part, and it's at that end game portion where all just accumulates, where they realize that, oh no, this isn't what I thought it to be. This is completely something else. And then, as they're playing that short run through, they're understanding all the mechanics. Because it was by design that this had to be a short, the end game had to be a short experience, because I didn't really want to overwhelm them. I just wanted to be something that was quick, that was just right in their face, and they had to figure it out all right then and there.
Thank you, Vincent. All right, please welcome Amanda Fisher. No pun intended.
My thesis topic involves the development of a pro-social emotional learning tool for children who are going through middle childhood development. There aren't a lot of pro-social emotional learning tools that are available for children that are going through this difficult time, especially children who are considered high functioning, who are on the autism spectrum disorder, and who may have behavioral or learning disabilities. Hello, I'm Amanda Fisher, and welcome to my thesis presentation of my project called Young Aquarist. So, this is me. I am going on to my third year as a full-time game art BFA professor at the Laguna College of Art and Design. I'm working part-time on some cool game stuff as well, and I have 10 years experience in the game industry, as well as over 8 years teaching game art and design at both the high school and collegiate level. So, one of the biggest things about my thesis is the age of reason. This is also known as middle childhood development. This is the time in a child's life between the ages of 6 and 12 in which they are going out into the world and learning to reason with the world around them outside of their collective home. So they are learning more about people and things outside of themselves. The first thing is that they're going to be spending a lot more time away from their family. They're more flexible in their thinking. They're going to be developing self-awareness and their own identity, as well as identifying others' feelings and emotions. This is the very empathic session of their learning during middle childhood. Secondly, they're going to be adjusting to a broader social life away from home. This is because they're going to be most likely in school, in different programs, with different social circles. They're going to be achieving new academic skills, learning to get along with others, as well as learning the rules of our culture and our society with the other people that they're going to be experiencing and integrating themselves with. So our goal with Young Aquarius is to nurture the foundation of pro-social emotional learning throughout middle childhood development. With this foundation of pro-social emotional learning, we're trying to incorporate this learning tool for children to learn these empathic skill sets. But there's a problem. And the problem is that there's a lack of effective learning tools that teach children how to recognize and express pro-social emotional behaviors during middle childhood development. There are children that struggle with this specific time in their lives, and having pro-social learning tools for them to help them through this is important. But with the lack of learning tools, that in of itself is a problem. So our approach is to create a new learning tool that ensures the successful development of pro-social emotional behaviors. And we're doing this by creating a virtual gameplay experience that cultivates pro-social behaviors. And that is Young Aquarius, where we are nurturing empathy, confidence, and responsibility with awesome fish friends. So why a fish game? Well, a fish is a common first-time pet. And they are often mistreated due to emotional disconnect. And they are often neglected due to the misunderstanding of their needs. So due to these factors, fish were the perfect subject for teaching pro-social emotional connections. They are considered a lesser pet, but because they are a common first-time pet, it's a great way for children to find something that they can engage with at the minimal level. So, ideally, Young Aquarius is going to be teaching children how to connect with something or someone at an empathic level. And simultaneously, it's going to be teaching children how to properly take care of a commonly misunderstood and mistreated first-time pet. You didn't get to see the animation, but whatever. It was really cool. So Young Aquarius introduces a new and unique experience of taking care of a virtual pet through practices of empathy, confidence, and responsibility. So the premise of this game is that it is a single-player mobile game. Ideally, it will be on a tablet platform. It is a virtual pet game in the simulation genre, directed towards a younger audience, with the target audience being 6 to 12 years old. It takes a friendly, educational, and positively reinforced approach to the game design and weaves lessons of empathy, confidence, and responsibility within the gameplay experience. So with any virtual pet game, not pet fish, but you get to pet your fish, you can feed your fish, you can play with your fish, and you can learn about your fish. Not only that, you can decorate their fish tank. You can personalize a fish tank in any way you want that is best set for you and your pet fish. And in terms of cleaning your tank, because you have to do that with a pet fish, you get to vacuum your substrate and you get to scrub your algae. So the test, this was the most important part. Was our game actually doing what we wanted for children? So I worked with a man named Jack Schools. So he goes by Mr. Jack. Why he wouldn't go by Mr. Schools is beyond me, because I think that's powerful as a teacher. But he is a SOAR special education teacher at the Urbana Middle School. He runs after school and summer programs, and he specifically focuses on social, emotional, and emotional regulative learning through animal husbandry. And what made him so perfect was he taught all this by using aquariums with betta fish in his classroom, which is our mascot character that you can play with in the current build. So how this was conducted was that he had over 30 SEL students between the ages of 12 and 14. With their specific education, they're considered to be at the mental age of 8 to 10, which put them at the mid to high bracket of our target audience. And they played the vertical slice demo of Young Aquarist. Feedback was collected directly through verbal one-on-one interviews between Mr. Jack and his students. He would have the interview with them, record their answer, and then deliver it to us. So the results. Well, we found that all players felt internal empathy for their pet fish. They all loved it. They all wanted to do anything they could to take care of it, and they were unhappy if they couldn't. The second result is that all playtesters showed external empathic behaviors. If they were feeling empathy and reacting empathically, they were showing that through their own actions. And then the third result was that all playtesters addressed their fish's needs with emotional responses and without external guidance. This was huge for us because anytime something needed to be done, those children understood intrinsically what to do. So they were not told by an authority, hey, your fish is hungry, maybe you should feed your fish. They already knew. They could deduce it and said, I need to feed my fish, it's hungry. So an example is exactly that. The fish was hungry, the player fed it, and then stopped feeding it when it was full. Now, with the build that was sent to Mr. Jack, there was no recourse or consequence for overfeeding the fish. As you saw with the fish eating, you could continuously just feed the fish and nothing would happen. It was fun to watch it eat food and eat food. However, our child play testers that were playing it, as soon as that bar went up to full, they just stopped. Every single one. And so they chose not to overfeed it. They said, my fish is full, I'm done, no more feeding. And then secondly, if the fish was unhappy, the player instinctively made their best judgment on which decisions to make for the fish to become happy. 50-50, it was either they pet the fish or they played with the fish. They did things that they considered would make the fish happy because it made them happy. So they were taking the emotions that they were feeling and empathically plugging it into another living thing, well, virtually living thing, and saying, hey, this makes me happy, I hope it makes you happy, which is a huge empathic response. And then finally, this was the best quote I ever got from this. And it was, when I'm done, I can just go back to neglecting my fish. They were not happy about this. They told us this and they were very upset. And we were like, well, why? What's wrong though? They completed the demo. Why would they think this? Through analysis and feedback, we came to the conclusion it was two primary reasons. The first error was that there was no explicit indication of the player having completed the demo. Once the bars were full, everything just kind of stopped. And we were like, yeah, that means you're done. For children, they need explicit information. So they see the bars are full and they're like, I can't do anything. Oh my gosh, that means I'm not doing anything. Therefore, I'm neglecting my fish. So they felt, which was the second error, they perceived the successful end of the demo as a negative experience. They didn't like that it ended the way that it did because it didn't read as an end. It read as forcefully making them do nothing, and they didn't want to do nothing. But the biggest takeaway was it was a very clear sign of an empathic response. So through those two major errors, we found they clearly felt for their fish. They loved this little thing on the screen. They loved it to death, and they didn't want to stop caring for it. So, in conclusion, we found that the players expressed a love for their virtual fish akin to that of a child's admiration for a real-life pet. And secondly, players showed excitable physical responses to the positive indicators that they were taking care of their fish successfully. Anytime they saw that anything they did was successful, it encouraged them to continue doing those successful things. If they did something that was considered unsuccessful, positive reinforcement within the game's design directed them to the more positive, the more positive action, and therefore they got the result that they were looking for. So for future plans, our goals is that we are going to be continuing to collect feedback from playtests. We already have ones logged away from between June 10th and 27th with Mr. Jack with over 80 SEL students over the summer. And we are also putting this in the hands of teachers and educators and therapists and psychologists. So we want to know, what do they think about this? And so we are working with them as well in order to continue our development and design assessments to ensure the integrity of our game experience. And through their feedback, we're going to be able to do more. We want to do more for this game, and we want to provide more for our players. So through their feedback, we will be able to add and implement more features. So with that, thank you for swimming with me. I'm going to do my thanks real quick. Yeah, sorry. I want to thank my wives for putting up with me for 2 years and not being around. I want to thank my mom for putting up with me for 2 years for not being around. I want to thank my friends for putting up with me for 2 years not being around. My faculty, my boss, my coworkers, all of you were incredibly supportive for my journey, especially my family. I could not have succeeded this without you guys. So you guys did amazing. And thank you to my dev team. You guys are great.
Thank you, Amanda. All right, I've got 2 questions for you here. We'll start at the first, and if you need to repeat, that's fine. I'll put them in front of you so you can read as well.
I'm going to follow along while you read it.
In your paper, you mentioned specific design decisions that are common in virtual pet games that had to be changed in order for young Aquarius to meet your goals for nurturing pro-social behaviors in the player. How did you come to decide these changes, and what challenges do you have to overcome when balancing proven gameplay elements of the genre and meeting your design goals?
For sure. I think the main design decision that was cut out was the death of your fish. We are dealing with children between the ages of 6 and 12. A lot of the time, children as young as 6 either kind of understand death and kind of don't. So if we were dealing with a younger bracket, we had to consider, was fish death viable, and would it actually discourage the player more if their fish died? And so we went through a lot of repetition with this game design choice, as well as how should consequences play out. And ultimately, we nixed the idea of fish death because at its basic form, if their fish dies and they don't understand why, that child is not going to learn from this experience. In fact, they're not going to like it. And we wanted to instead give them the opportunity to make mistakes. Your fish can get sick, but you can also help and cure your fish. Can it stay sick forever? Yeah, if you don't open the app. Totally. But if they come back and their fish is sick, they're not like, oh my gosh, my fish is gone. I put all these hours. It was my favorite color. It was my favorite shape. They get to do the right decisions to make it better again. So it's all positively reinforced. Just making sure I covered the question. Yeah, it was mostly like the balance just came down to permanent consequences could not exist.
Thank you. For the second question, were the students independently playing the game, or was it done in a group setting? If it was in a group setting, were there dominant or common pro-social emotional behaviors skills that were expressed?
Yes. It was mixed. We were dealing with SEL students, so there was a lot of very niche settings that certain students had to be placed in order to feel comfortable enough to provide feedback. Some of them played in small groups where they felt comfortable playing with their best friend, watching over their shoulder. A lot of them just played on their own. They were called up to the computer. They got to play the game. And that was what was most encouraged was, could they play this alone and still show those empathic responses on their own? For every single student that had been with one or more other students watching them while one played, none of them told each other what to do. They all just watched and smiled and laughed with each other. So they were more or less communicating through their external empathic responses rather than any verbal spoken word. So if they did something good, their friend may have laughed. I do believe that it would influence their behavior, but I find that it would be something more of an adaptation of, oh, that my friend thought that was good. I'm seeing on the screen and correlating that I did something good. I can remember to do that. I put it to how it's good to recognize the process rather than the success so that your child knows exactly what they had to do to get to the right answer. The most dominant pro-social emotional behavioral skill that was expressed was playing with the fish when it was unhappy. If they saw that status gauge was down, they were like, oh my gosh, okay, I can play with the fish, I can pet the fish. Okay, it's going up. Awesome. My fish is happy and they're smiling because their fish is smiling. The fish spins when it gets pet enough times and they're like, the fish is happy. And so that was predominantly, it was just the happiness factor. Cool. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
We're on our final presentation for the night. So please welcome Curtis Fetters.
My name is Curtis Fetters, and I developed Starship Escape. My research included how to get physical inputs into Unreal Engine, as well as getting Unreal Engine to output physical inputs into the physical world. So Starship Escape is a real-life escape room where players get to enter a physical room that is themed like a spaceship. And the players get to fly it around, they get to make repairs, they get to solve puzzles, and they eventually have to solve a mission that involves them exploring an open-world game that is developed in Unreal Engine. Excellent. Thank you everyone for coming this evening. My name is Kurt, and I developed Starship Interstellar Escape. So first off, question, has anyone here ever wanted to fly a spaceship? Yeah, pretty much everyone. If you haven't, then you should try it. It's great. So what inspired this project is I've been playing escape rooms for almost a decade now, and every single time I do a sci-fi escape room where I get to be in a spaceship, I always want to fly it. And obviously, no one's going to create a game like that where you can just fly a spaceship around an open world environment. So I kind of knew it was a tall order and I never was going to see something like this. So I did it myself. So about me, I have been professionally designing and developing escape rooms for over 8 years. Recently, I've become quite the experienced Unreal Engine developer. I love Unreal Engine. It's been so fun working into it. I've been a scenic designer and building just physical props and scenics for many years, and I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and today I'm speaking to you as a game designer. So the mission for my thesis was to utilize Unreal Engine as an escape room controller. So as many people are probably asking themselves right now, what is an escape room controller? So an escape room controller is a device or software that controls the logic flow and elements of an escape room. So until recently, and actually recently, developers for escape rooms have been using things like Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and other individual components that companies like Frightprop sell that allow you to control props, locks, lights, stuff like that. So I wanted to use something that is a little bit more dynamic and capable of handling different things. So in order for something to be an escape room controller, it needs to handle 3 major components. It needs to handle the logic, it needs to handle inputs, and it needs to output that to external devices. So the logic is handled pretty simply. That's handled through the game engine. I chose Unreal Engine. You can do this with just about any modern game engine on the market. Unity and Godot both have features that can do everything that Unreal Engine is handling with Starship. So with that, we have the logic handled out. All you have to do is learn a game engine. Good luck. So next is the inputs. So the inputs is how players interact with the game. So usually we don't talk about this because it's intuitive. It's a game controller. It's a mouse and keyboard. For us, players need to be able to, place an object down and a game to sense that. They also have just normal buttons that all games kind of need. So we got buttons, read switches, and relays that we need to be able to sense. So the solution for this, we ended up using keyboard emulators that are used in professional arcade cabinets. So this is how you get physical buttons in an arcade to talk to the computer to then render, Pac-Man, unless you have a really old school classic arcade. So we end up using the iPac, which is just a device that you can physically wire up to, and it converts those into key presses. So, you plug something in the room, and that's just like the A key being pressed. So if you're familiar with game engines and coding, this is going to bring this to a language that you're probably familiar with. And this helps bridge the gap from the physical to the digital game world. So excellent. We got the inputs handled. So all you need to learn for that is, get a degree in electronic engineering. So next is the outputs. So this is how the game actually talks to the world. So two that everyone's probably very familiar with, audio and video. This is your typical game. You're going to have a video screen and you're going to have audio that's going to give players their feedback to what's happening. Escape rooms also need to handle and be able to control lights, motors, magnetic locks, and other physical components that aren't just video and audio. So we handled this by using DMX. It's a type of output system that's commonly used at concerts. So if you've ever, probably these little lights right up here, they have DMX inputs, and my game can control those. So this is how we control the spotlights, the lighting, the magnetic locks, anything electronic in the room we can control with DMX. So the little GIF right there, you're plugging something in, that's sensing it, that's going at that actual inputs, the A key. So when you plug it in, it's just like pressing the A key, and it's telling Unreal Engine to turn the lights from green to red. So now we have all the components that we need, and you just need a whole team of professionals in order to make this happen. So using these, we came up with this idea for Starship Interstellar Escape. In one of our earlier game design classes, we had to create a pitch deck for just random, game ideas. And I ended up creating a pitch deck for this concept. And a few weeks later, a random escape room owner just was cold calling escape rooms, trying to buy them. And we got in a nice conversation about me being a designer and him looking for one. And I just sent him my assignment I made in class. And he wanted to make it immediately. And within months, we started development. And this turned into my full-time thesis project. So Starship Escape, this is all the fancy stuff that me and the client decided on that's going to build the foundation for this game. We know it's 60 minutes. I know I want players to fly around in a starship. That's kind of the important part. And I also wanted to incorporate some, minor RPG elements where they can upgrade their ship. So the player types, so when we're building a game like Starship, this is a real-life escape game. So you have players that you don't have to deal with in normal gaming instances, and that is players who do not want to be there. People bring their family members who don't want to do an escape room, and they're in the room. So you have to design for people who have done 300 escape rooms, people who have done 0 escape rooms, and people who want to do 0 escape rooms. And everyone needs to have a fun time. So we need to make sure we're accounting for all of these different player types. So Starship, so at its basics, players are stealing a spaceship from a mining company. They're not a good mining company. They've imprisoned you for some just questionable charges, and you're just going to go ahead and steal one of their ships. So players need to solve puzzles to progress the game and upgrade their ship. They need to pilot the starship to a planet called Nova Terra by warping from different levels throughout the game. And they only have 60 minutes of oxygen to do this. The game is broken up into 3 phases. Phase 1 is the introduction for the room. This is where players are introduced to the basic game mechanics. They're going to learn how to interact with the basic pilots. They're going to interact with many of the introduction to the puzzles, and they're going to start learning kind of the fundamental game loop that they're going to be doing for the rest of this hour. So this phase is about 15 to 20 minutes. They have a small handful of puzzles they need to solve, and they're going to have to learn how to use their gun for the first time. once that gun is active and they mine their first asteroid, their ship is going to be able it unlocks the free flight mode. And so they're going to be able to freely fly around and start exploring the game world. And so phase 2 is broken up into 2 different sections. The first section this is kind of the video game portion of the room. They are able to physically fly around the ship in an open world environment. They get to shoot asteroids, mine them, collect the ore, and use that ore to upgrade their ship. Once they've finished and they collected everything, they can choose to warp to the next station. Once they're at different levels, there's going to be supply crates flying around in space. They're able to grab these digital supply crates, and then they come physically into the room through airlocks, and they're able to get a digital game object in the world and have it as a physical component in the game world with them. The second part of the second phase, this is where players are making repairs in the room. They're making upgrades. So while half the group is running around trying to fly the ship, the other group is trying to fix it, and they're trying to keep it running. And usually these roles are not defined, and everyone's just running around to every different station, and it is pure chaos. It is exactly what I wanted. It is an emulation of piloting the Millennium Falcon as it's breaking apart. Now, once they reach the final level of the game, this is where I start phase 3. This is the boss fight of the game. They're going to have to use every single skill they've learned up until this point. The pilots are going to have to fly and pursue the boss. The gunners are going to have to shoot it. And the navigators are going to have to use the map in the room to track down so they can create flight paths so they can fight this boss. Once the boss is defeated, they'll reach their last warp drive that will take them to Nova Terra, which will then end the game as the victory winning conditions. They'll get a tally of their final score, so if they've done extra puzzles, if they've mined all the asteroids, they'll get a higher score. And then they get a group photo, and then we kick them out because we got another group coming in right after them. So with this, I kind of want to break apart a little bit from Starship and just talk about the elements of using Unreal Engine to create other live immersive escape games or just any other live immersive games. So the strengths of this allows us to introduce completely new game mechanics into escape games that were not possible before, mainly because we can render entire world. We can do video game stuff, we can make it's what we do. It also allows us to produce these games much faster. If you're doing simpler games, these can be coded and connected up very quickly. One of our games that had an Arduino controller ended up degrading and started glitching out, so we decided to replace it. That build and those codes took months to develop. Once we switched them over to Unreal Engine, it took us 2 days to completely recode it from scratch and to rip out all the electrical components and replace them with the new ones. And it is now a much better experience because even though we tried to emulate it perfectly, we had unlimited sound effects. So what used to be 8, now we have like 30 different sounds. So every time a door opens, you get different creaks, you get different music changes as the game progresses. And this just gives us lots of opportunities to make different themes, and it might start unlocking the possibility of escape games becoming replayable. The weaknesses of this, it's expensive. You need to learn a game engine, you need to learn a lot of different things to get all these pieces to fit together, and it's no simple task. The rooms are also becoming more complicated. With more moving parts, you have a higher chance of things breaking apart. Also, there's a lot of legal issues with owning escape rooms as well as using game engines to run them. Unreal Engine can change their legal, how you're allowed to utilize the system on a dime, and you might not be able to use any future versions. Also, with physical escape rooms, you have permits. The city can just go, we're not allowing these anymore. Get out, which has happened to many of my friends. And it's also a physical product, so you have lots of other risks, like people getting injured, people breaking things physically, not just bugs, but people just throwing a prop on the ground and it shattering. I want to give a special thanks to the team that helped make this possible. In addition to everyone at LCAD on the production teams and everyone who's been helping with this, we also had a small team over at Wild Goose Escape Games. Namely, Isaac and Michael were the 2 escape game artists who were on site helping us paint, helping us run wires. If you see the image, they're over here. They're not flying the ship. They are working in Unreal Engine right now. It's so simple that even my artists who've never dealt with any type of game development can get in there, change lightings, change basic variables up. They can understand things and actually make changes to the game on site. It was very fun to see. And also, Chris the carpenter, he helped build this, do all the carpentry. I normally handle that. I had other concerns during this. And everyone else who made this possible, thank you guys very much. So this game has actually been open for almost 2 months now. It's been fully sold out every single weekend since it's opened. Weekdays are their weekdays for escape rooms. And it has just been opened up to just glowing reviews. People are absolutely loving this game. It routinely gets compared to Disneyland's Smuggler Run combined with an escape room, which is just the best thing I've ever heard in my life. So thank you guys very much, and I'm ready for questions. Let's go.
Thank you, Kurt. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with the first question. So repeatability is an issue with escape rooms. What you've done is pretty monumental in allowing the breaking the mold of the nonlinear play. Could you give us a little bit of expansion into what you think that a framework like this could allow you to do as an escape room designer, and how that bridges the gap between this industry and game development?
Absolutely. So first off, escape rooms in general are puzzle genre games. And even within the video game industry, puzzle games typically aren't very replayable. So I would think this allows us to bridge away from escape games becoming puzzle games. They can become action games. They can become role-playing games. They can be any type of other genre. And once you start tapping into game loops that aren't just puzzles, you create unique experiences that can be replayed. And I think you're also fighting against the mold itself. So even if you do create a game that is replayable and players and testing shows that they're enjoying multiple playthroughs of it, you might still have a hard time breaking that current mold in the industry of players we don't replay games. We're going to replay the game of the same company. We want to play a different escape game from the same company. So hopefully we could start doing that. There's been a couple replays for Starship, so.
The second question is, in your thesis paper, you address the various forms of feedback given to players for different parts of the experience. In digital game design, we're normally limited to auditory, visual, and haptic feedback happening on screen. In escape rooms, much of the feedback is still auditory, visual, and haptic feedback, but then there are other physical interactions that you can have with the players to give additional feedback. I found the use of the fans as a form of feedback corresponding to the current speed of the ship to be fascinating. And it feels like that would be more difficult form of feedback to control with the traditional escape room input systems described in your paper. How do you believe that the use of the game engine technology in escape rooms could increase the possibilities of digital to physical feedback in other ways?
Absolutely. So I would say fundamentally, giving players more feedback is a big reason why I chose to use Unreal Engine for this. I know everyone's excited about all the different forms of feedback you can give players with this. I am still really big on audio and video, because audio and video are very limited with the prior control systems. Like I said, with our Curse of the Black Knight room, the old Arduino system only gave us about 10 different files for sound we can utilize. So if you're thinking about like how that works for feedback, and you only have 10 sounds for your entire game, that includes your score, your ambient backgrounds, and all of your special effects sounds. You run out of spots real fast. So simply just being able to use Unreal Engine for that, like I said, we were able to add in dozens and dozens, and just the sound alone, it drastically improved the player experience. So, and using these new technologies, we can also do stuff like control fans. We can control the lighting in the room. Light's another one that's very difficult to control with Arduino. Lights typically are pretty high in wattage and power. So creating electrical systems that can dynamically breathe lights and you can animate them is just too mathematical when you're trying to use Arduino and mathematics to blink and control a light. With Unreal Engine and other game engines, you can animate them much simpler and much easier and much faster. So you're just going to be able to use the typical feedback systems you're already using and just apply those into an escape game. And you're just going to be able to improve the system drastically because of that.
All right. So we've concluded the presentations for the evening. So now what we'll do is we'll transition into the second part of this, which I would love you guys and invite you guys to socialize, talk with some of our industry veterans that are here with us, talk to some of the students, family members. This is about socializing and about celebrating what we do here, which is great art, great design. We put great ideas out in the world so that way others can enjoy them. So what I'd like you guys to do is back on the back wall over here are a bunch of stations that the students have their games set up. Go play them. Go check them out. They have some little swag things back there as well too, some stickers. Give them a LinkedIn follow so that way you can keep track of what they're doing next and what crazy ideas they can come up with. Now we have everyone's project that's up there except for Mr. Fetters because unfortunately we couldn't fit the escape room couldn't make an appearance here. So what we've done instead for his project so that way you could check it out is obviously we can point you to the physical location of it, but we have shot a video of it just to give you a little sense of not only what we're doing here in the program, but a little bit about that game design. So we'll go ahead and run that video. And then after this video concludes, I'll go ahead and invite you guys to enjoy these fantastic hors d'oeuvres that are back here. Sun-dried tomatoes, raise your hand back there. These guys are absolutely awesome. They got some stuff that I've brought in here that's my favorite, and it's going to be your new favorite as well. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you guys for your support as well too, and thank you guys too for all of your support in the industry. We couldn't do this program without you. This program is only forged because of its direct root inside of industry. It's not connected to industry. It is inside of the industry, and so that's only possible because of you guys that are sitting here. So if you could, please give an absolute round of applause to these industry folks sitting up here. Thank you guys for your dedicated support. Let's check out this video real quick. Thank you guys.
My name is Curtis Fetters. I am a game designer, and this is Starship Interstellar Escape. In the escape room industry, the focus is primarily on theatrics, beautiful immersive sets, creating story moments in games that are memorable. And escape rooms are very much about controlled experiences. It's about going from the next puzzle to the next puzzle to the next puzzle. And I think what separates this from other escape rooms is this is a game where we teach players mechanics, like how to fly a ship, how to shoot the ship, how to repair the ship, and then we release them into the game world. So for a room like Starship Escape, it pushes the boundaries of technologies in escape rooms. It's using Unreal Engine to fly a spaceship through space. It's using state-of-the-art controllers to control lights and props. Coming into this industry, I had no technical background, so building video games wasn't even something on my radar or something I was capable of doing. I learned by being hands-on, I learned by making lots of mistakes, and LCAD gives you the freedom to do that with state-of-the-art tools and access to the industry through their mentorship program and through their faculty. I got to work with the founder and original storyline writer of the Fallout series, Scott Campbell. He has been able to give me plenty of one-on-one time to help further my professional experience working in Unreal Engine, the ins and outs of the philosophies of game design, of crafting stories, to helping me make this product come to life. One of the classes we have that is one of my favorites is the production class. In this class, we are partnered with undergraduate game art students who are then assigned to our thesis projects to work on them as artists. So this class emulates actual industry production schedule where the students are working for game designers, trying to build a project that's not theirs. And from that, they are gaining just massive experience. And all the artists at LCAD feel like they are equipped to handle the professional world more than any other educational institution that I am aware of. LCAD has been absolutely invaluable in helping craft this experience to be everything it needs to be. They were able to set me up with mentors, give us access to artists and the technology we needed to test and develop these types of experiences. The more freedom you give students, the better experiences they're going to have in both their games and their educational journey. And that comes through at LCAD. it's tangible.
Thank you guys. Little shameless plug there, but again, thank you guys for your. That's the reason why this is so great, is because of you guys. Thank you so much. Please go socialize, and thank you for making this event awesome. Take care and safe travels home.